Ancient cities thrived for centuries with spotless streets and dry homes, even during violent storms. This was not magic, it was genius engineering. The world's oldest drainage systems are more than just pipes and gutters. They are forgotten libraries of human intelligence, holding secrets we have somehow misplaced. By the end of this exploration, you will see the modern world around you in an entirely new light. How did societies without computers or machinery build networks that outlast empires? What profound understanding of water and community have we lost over the ages? What does our own infrastructure reveal about us today? Mohenjo-Daro in the Indus Valley, a thriving metropolis over 4,000 years ago, possessed a secret to its success flowing right beneath its streets. This was not a city at the mercy of the seasons. When the rains came, every single drop was guided by a master plan of brick-lined channels, ensuring clean streets and healthy homes. This was the dawn of urban water management, a conscious decision that separated mere settlements from lasting civilizations. Controlling water was the difference between survival and collapse. Archaeologists like Jane McIntosh point out that these were not just ditches dug in desperation. They reveal a profound, almost intuitive grasp of hydrology and public health. The very stability of their society, its ability to grow and innovate for centuries, was built upon this foundational principle. The engineers of Mohenjo-Daro worked with the land, not against it. They understood the simple, undeniable pull of gravity, designing channels with a slight, consistent slope so water would flow away on its own. They built in a modular way, using standardized bricks and components, which meant the system could be easily repaired, expanded, and scaled as the city grew. The precision of their work is startling, with joints so tight and alignments so true they would meet modern engineering standards. It makes you wonder, with all our advanced technology, what fundamental wisdom have we left behind? How might our own sprawling cities transform if we relearned this ancient harmony with water? This foundational genius in the Indus Valley was just the beginning. Their intricate networks hold even deeper secrets waiting to be uncovered. But beneath the streets of Harappa lay a hidden network of order. From around 2,600 years before the Common Era, the people of the Indus Valley built a world of stunning precision, where every home connected to a system of covered drains that fed into larger, brick-lined sewer channels running beneath the main streets. This was not a feature reserved for the elite. It was a fundamental part of the city's design, a civic right accessible to all. The historian Gregory Possehl argues this was more than engineering. It was a reflection of a deep cultural code, one that valued public cleanliness and collective well-being above all else. The entire city was a testament to this philosophy. Let's break down how it actually worked. They used carefully crafted terracotta pipes, shaped to fit together perfectly. They built ingenious sedimentation tanks where water would slow down, allowing sand and silt to settle out before the cleaner liquid continued its journey. And they included regular covered access points, manholes essentially, so that any blockages could be easily cleared. This was not a system built and forgotten. It was designed for maintenance for the long term. Every component was built for durability, using standardized, uniformly sized bricks that could be easily replaced. The drainage channels were seamlessly integrated into the carefully planned grid of the streets, laid with a precise slope that used gravity to pull wastewater away from homes and public spaces. Perhaps the most striking symbol of this water intelligence is the Great Bath of Mohenjo-Daro. This large, watertight pool was not just for ritual, It was a masterpiece of hydraulic engineering, with an elaborate system for filling it with fresh water and draining it for cleaning. Here, the spiritual and the technical were one and the same. What does this incredible level of coordination tell us about their society? It speaks of a shared vision, a communal agreement that the health of the city depended on the health of every individual within it. Their intelligence was not just in how they built, but in why they built it. This sophisticated understanding of water did not exist in a vacuum, however. Far to the west, in the land between two rivers, another civilization was tackling the same elemental challenge with a different, yet equally brilliant form of ingenuity. While the Indus Valley perfected its covered brick channels, another civilization was mastering water on a truly epic scale. In Mesopotamia, the land between the Tigris and Euphrates rivers, water was both the source of life and a constant threat of destruction. From around 4,000 years before the Common Era, Mesopotamian engineers faced a monumental challenge: the annual, unpredictable floods that could either fertilize the fields or wash entire cities away. Their brilliant solution was a vast, interconnected network of canals. These waterways did far more than just irrigate crops. They formed the very arteries of urban drainage, creating a symbiotic relationship between the farmland and the city. Archaeologist Stephanie Daly explains that these systems were not passive. They were actively engineered to control water for both productivity and protection. The goal was to harness the flood, not just survive it. So how did they achieve this delicate balance? They built massive earthen levees, banks raised along the rivers to contain rising waters. They constructed intricate sluice gates, which were essentially wooden or stone barriers that could be opened or closed to precisely control the flow into the canals. During a flood, these gates could divert excess water away from urban centers, channeling it into overflow basins or secondary canals that would irrigate distant fields. This was a system of distribution and defense working in perfect harmony. The scale of this effort required something the Indus Valley might not have needed to the same degree: a powerful, centralized authority. Cuneiform tablets from the era are filled with administrative records, detailing the organization of labor crews for dredging silt from canals and strict regulations for their maintenance. This was not a suggestion, it was a matter of civic law and survival. We can see the profound results of this system in a city like Nineveh. Its advanced canal networks were designed to do more than prevent flooding. They were also a public health triumph. By systematically diverting wastewater and storm runoff away from residential areas and into agricultural channels, they significantly reduced the stagnant pools where disease-carrying insects bred. This led to fewer outbreaks and a healthier population. But this approach reveals something deeper about the Mesopotamian worldview. Their relationship with water was not one of simple domination. It was a constant, negotiated interplay with a powerful natural force. They saw themselves as partners with their environment, tasked with managing its immense power for the benefit of their civilization. How did their approach to water reflect their view of nature? It was a relationship built on respect, negotiation, and a profound understanding of consequence. This hard-won intelligence forged between two great rivers would find another stunning expression along the banks of the Nile. The grand temples of Egypt, like those at Luxor, were not just monuments of stone, they were living systems. Beneath their imposing facades lay hidden channels, a network of stone gutters and copper pipes designed with one critical purpose: to channel away every drop of water from ritual cleansings and violent desert storms. This was not an afterthought, it was foundational to their immortality. From the Old Kingdom onward, Egyptian engineers displayed a genius for making water disappear. As Egyptologist Zahi Hawass has emphasized, these drainage systems were not separate from the architecture. They were a core reason these structures have survived for thousands of years. They built with permanence in mind, using durable materials like precisely cut limestone for channels, and in a stunning display of sophistication, even crafting pipes from beaten copper sheet. The principles guiding their work were remarkably advanced. They performed careful gradient calculations, ensuring every channel had just the right slope to pull water away efficiently without causing damaging erosion. They employed simple but effective filtration methods, using gravel beds or slotted stone covers to catch debris before it could clog the narrow pipes. The result was a silent, relentless system that protected sacred spaces from their greatest enemy, moisture. This same intelligence was applied to the places where people actually lived. In the workers' village of Deir el-Medina, home to the artisans who built the royal tombs, we see a profound concern for public health. The settlement was equipped with effective waste management, including drainage channels that carried wastewater away from homes. This meticulous attention to hygiene in a commoner's village drastically reduced the epidemics that plagued other ancient cities, proving this was a widespread societal value, not just a privilege for the elite. Perhaps the most striking example of this foresight is found not in a temple or a town, but in the very pyramids themselves. On the Giza Plateau, the builders incorporated drainage channels directly into the massive stone blocks of the Great Pyramid's core. These were not for show, they were a practical solution to handle the rare but destructive torrential rains, directing water safely through the monument's heart to prevent internal damage. This blend of the grand and the practical, of spiritual form and life-saving function, points to a holistic intelligence. They saw no separation between the sacred duty of preserving a temple and the civic duty of preserving public health. It was all part of a single, unified vision for a civilization built to endure. How might our own cities change if we viewed a storm drain with the same reverence we hold for a cathedral? This seamless integration of water management into the fabric of life was not unique to Egypt. On the island of Crete, the Minoans were building palaces with a level of comfort and luxury that included a truly unexpected marvel, flowing water inside the very walls. The Palace of Knossos was a world of running water and flushing toilets over 3,500 years ago. While other civilizations managed water for survival or ceremony, the Minoans engineered it for comfort and luxury. Their advanced terracotta pipes did more than just supply fresh water. They created a standard of living that would not be seen again in Europe for millennia. Historian Rodney Castleton points out that this was not a mere technical achievement. It was a cultural one, driven by a society that placed immense value on personal hygiene and domestic ease. This focus on quality of life directly fueled their technological progress. Their pipes were not simple tubes, they were masterpieces of hydraulic design. To navigate the complex elevation changes within the sprawling palace, Minoan engineers employed an early form of the inverted siphon. This ingenious system used the principle of communicating vessels, allowing water to be forced down one side of a U-shaped pipe and up the other, effectively carrying it over small valleys or depressions without losing pressure. They even incorporated ventilation shafts to prevent airlocks and reduce unpleasant odors, a level of refinement that feels astonishingly modern. This was a system built to be maintained. Archaeologists have found specialized bronze tools designed specifically for clearing blockages from the pipes, proving that regular upkeep was a standard, expected practice. The entire network was a testament to foresight. We see this clearly not just at Knossos, but at the city of Akrotiri on Thera. There, the intricate drainage channels carved into the streets and built into the walls did more than prevent flooding. they actively controlled the interior environment of the buildings. By effectively channeling rainwater and groundwater away from the structures, these systems preserved the vibrant, breathtaking frescoes that adorned the walls, protecting them from the destructive power of moisture and salt. This reveals a sophisticated understanding that went beyond mere plumbing. It was an early form of environmental control, an effort to create a stable, beautiful, and healthy living space. How did their pursuit of luxury shape their intelligence? It directed their ingenuity towards solving problems of daily life, creating technologies that enhanced human comfort in a direct and tangible way. This was a nuanced form of genius, one that saw engineering as a path to a more refined existence. The Greeks would later look upon these Minoan wonders and build their own legacy, but with a distinctly different philosophy. The Agora of Athens was more than a marketplace. It was the pulsing heart of a new idea, democracy. Here, beneath the feet of philosophers and citizens, ran a hidden network of stone conduits and terracotta pipes, a physical manifestation of the Greek belief in civic order. From the Archaic period through the height of the Hellenistic era, Greek cities engineered water systems that served the entire community, reflecting a philosophy where public welfare was a collective responsibility. The classicist James Whitley explains that for the Greeks, effective drainage was not a mere technicality. It was a civic duty, as fundamental to a functioning city as its laws or its assemblies. This was intelligence applied for the common good. Their engineering was both elegant and practical. They built robust stone channels to carry water from distant aqueducts to public fountains, ensuring a clean supply. More importantly, they designed sophisticated overflow channels and underground drains that managed storm runoff, preventing the city squares from turning into muddy swamps after a downpour. This systematic approach had a direct and profound impact on public health. Hippocratic texts explicitly link stagnant water with the spread of disease, particularly the fevers we now know as malaria. By designing cities to shed water efficiently, Greek engineers were actively fighting epidemics, creating a healthier environment where democracy could truly flourish. This fusion of thought and action reached its most ambitious scale far from Athens, in the Copais Basin. There, Greek city-states undertook one of the most massive hydrological projects of the ancient world. They coordinated to drain the vast Copais Lake, constructing a complex system of massive canals, dikes, and subterranean tunnels that rerouted entire rivers. This colossal effort reclaimed incredibly fertile land for agriculture, demonstrating a level of large-scale planning and inter-city cooperation that was breathtaking. How did their philosophical beliefs shape this practical infrastructure? Thinkers like Aristotle wrote extensively on the ideal city, its layout, and its relationship to the natural environment. For them, a well-drained city was a rational city, a place where order in the streets reflected order in the soul. Their intelligence was holistic, seeing no divide between the lofty ideals of philosophy and the gritty reality of a storm drain. They built infrastructure as an expression of their deepest values. This powerful combination of Greek philosophy and engineering would not be forgotten. A rising power to the west was watching, and they were ready to take these concepts and build on a scale the world had never seen. Rome's Cloaca Maxima began as a humble stream, channeled to drain the marshland between its famous hills. Over centuries, it was enclosed in stone, transforming into a monumental sewer that served the city for over 1,000 years. This was more than a drain. It was a statement of imperial power and a direct investment in public health, a legacy of durable infrastructure that defined the Roman world from the Republic through the Empire. The engineer Frontinus, who personally managed Rome's waters, wrote with pride about the meticulous planning behind these systems. He documented the precise laws governing their use, the legal responsibilities for maintenance, and the clear understanding that the city's greatness was inextricably linked to the flow of its water. The construction techniques they pioneered were revolutionary. They used a special, waterproof concrete that could set underwater, and they mastered the arched vault, which distributed weight so effectively that these tunnels could withstand earthquakes and the immense pressure of time itself. This allowed them to build expansive networks that were both incredibly strong and remarkably durable. This genius for integration created a closed-loop system. Aqueducts brought fresh water into the city, feeding public baths and fountains. The used water, along with storm runoff, was then channeled into the same elaborate network of drains which carried it safely away. Nothing was wasted. Every element had a purpose. We can see this seamless coordination perfectly preserved in a place like Pompeii. Stepping stones allowed citizens to cross streets without touching the wastewater flowing in the gutters, while carefully placed gaps between the stones let chariots pass through. Each home had its own drain connecting to this public system, ensuring that even during heavy rains, the city remained functional and remarkably clean. What does the sheer longevity of these systems teach us about sustainable design? Their endurance was not an accident. It was the result of foresight, of building not for a decade, but for a millennium. They used materials made to last and designed networks that were easy to access and repair. This was intelligence built for the ages, a lesson in planning we are still struggling to learn. While Rome was perfecting its arched vaults and concrete on the other side of the world, Chinese civilizations were developing their own parallel and equally brilliant innovations in water control. While Rome was mastering the arch, a parallel form of genius was flourishing along the Yellow River. This was a hydraulic civilization where the very authority to rule was measured by the ability to control water. From the Shang dynasty onward, Chinese statecraft and cosmology were deeply intertwined with the management of rivers and canals. The great historian Joseph Needham documented how this was not merely engineering. It was a philosophy, a belief that effective water management was a direct reflection of virtuous leadership, a true mandate of heaven. Emperors were not distant administrators, they were actively involved, personally overseeing massive dredging projects and the construction of spillways. Their power flowed through the canals as surely as the water did. How did they achieve this on such a vast scale? Their engineering toolbox was both simple and brilliant. They used resilient, flexible bamboo pipes for smaller distribution networks, and they mastered the construction of massive earthen levees and stone spillways. These spillways were the key to balance, designed to automatically divert excess floodwater into designated overflow areas, protecting downstream cities and farmland. This system of distribution was not just about preventing disaster, it was about enabling life, supporting the intensive rice cultivation that fed a growing empire. This intelligence directly shaped their urban centers. The magnificent capital of Chang'an was a prime example, surrounded by deep, wide moats that served a dual purpose. They were formidable defensive barriers, but they also functioned as integral parts of the city's drainage network, channeling stormwater and waste away from the densely populated streets. Beneath those streets lay brick-lined drains that connected homes to this greater system, ensuring a level of urban sanitation that preserved public health for centuries. Perhaps the most enduring symbol of this ancient wisdom is the Dujiangyan irrigation system. Instead of building a dam, Chinese engineers created a levee to split the Min River into two channels. They then carved a mountain pass to create a spillway that would automatically drain excess water and silt back into the main river during the dry season. This was a self-regulating system, a perpetual motion machine for water and sediment that required no moving parts. It was so effective that it is still in use today, irrigating over 5,000 square kilometers of farmland. How did their holistic view of nature influence these technological advances? They saw themselves not as conquerors of the river, but as partners with it. Their goal was to guide its energy, not block it, to work with the fundamental principles of flow and sedimentation. This symbiotic relationship with the natural world produced a technology that was both profoundly intelligent and incredibly durable. This same spirit of innovation, of finding harmony with a challenging environment, was also thriving an entire world away in the mountains and jungles of the Americas. The Avenue of the Dead in Teotihuacan was not merely a ceremonial path, it was a sophisticated water harvesting machine. Beneath a tropical sky that could switch from searing sun to torrential rain in moments, the city's builders lined this grand thoroughfare with precisely engineered channels. These conduits did more than just prevent flooding, they captured the lifeblood of the region, channeling precious rainwater toward agricultural terraces and into vast, sacred reservoirs. From around 100 years before the Common Era until the city's mysterious decline around 750 years into the Common Era, this was the Mesoamerican way, a seamless blend of utility and profound spiritual significance. Archaeologist Linda Manzanilla has spent decades uncovering how these systems were masterfully designed to handle violent downpours while conserving every drop for the long dry season. This was not a fight against nature, it was a deep collaboration. The methods they developed were both simple and brilliant. They constructed miles of plaster-lined canals, their smooth, sealed surfaces preventing precious water from seeping into the thirsty ground. They built intricate reservoir systems like the one at the Ciudadela, which could hold millions of gallons, creating a reliable, internal water supply that supported a dense urban population without any modern technology. Their planning was so advanced it reached for the stars. Temples and pyramids were not just spiritual centers, they were often key components of the water collection network. Their alignments, sometimes based on astronomical observations, were designed to funnel rainwater from vast stone catchment areas into underground storage chambers. The entire city was a landscape engineered for water. A stunning case study of this intelligence comes from the Maya city of Tikal. Deep within the jungle, engineers constructed elaborate underground cisterns known as Chultuns. These bottle-shaped chambers, carved into the limestone bedrock and sealed with plaster, collected rainwater from paved plazas and temple roofs. But they did not just store water, they filtered it. Layers of sand and gravel acted as a natural purification system, providing cleaner, safer drinking water and reducing the city's reliance on distant and potentially vulnerable external sources. What can our modern cities, so often at odds with their environments, learn from this ancient integration of ecology and urban design? Their wisdom was in viewing the city not as separate from the natural world, but as an extension of it, where a downpour was not a problem to be disposed of, but a resource to be cherished. This harmony points to a lost intelligence, one that understood survival was not about domination, but about partnership. The very design of these Mesoamerican systems reveals a broader societal trait, a world view where every element of life, from the stars above to the water below, was part of a single, interconnected whole. These ancient engineers faced problems not with brute force, but with a profound and observant intelligence. They did not simply react to a flood, they anticipated it, studied the patterns of rain and river, and designed solutions that served their communities for centuries. This was a cognitive leap far beyond basic survival, a form of applied genius that we might call lost intelligence. Cognitive archaeologist Stephen Mithen argues that this required a sophisticated blend of abstract thinking and long-term planning. They had to visualize an entire watershed, understand seasonal variations, and commit to projects they themselves might never see completed. This is a kind of foresight our own short-term cycles often struggle to match. Their brilliance is most evident in how they solved multiple problems with a single, elegant design. A drainage channel was never just a drain. In Mesopotamia, it was also an irrigation canal feeding crops as it carried away excess water. In Egypt, a temple gutter was part of a sacred ritual, channeling the water of purification. They consistently built for synergy, where every element served more than one purpose. This multifunctional approach is perfectly captured by the stepwells of India. These were not mere holes in the ground. They were breathtaking inverted temples, vast subterranean architectures carved down to the water table. Each monsoon rain would replenish the reservoir at the bottom, while the stepped sides provided access even as the water level fell. But their function was layered. They were also cool, shaded social centers where communities gathered, and they were places of spiritual reflection, their walls adorned with intricate carvings. They solved the practical problem of water security, the social need for a communal space, and the spiritual yearning for connection, all within one magnificent structure. How does our modern engineering compare? We often excel at solving a single, isolated problem with immense technical power, but we can lose the holistic vision that connected flood control to food, to faith, to community life. These ancient builders worked with what was available, their innovation constrained and inspired by their environment. They used local materials, whether it was the baked terracotta of the Indus Valley, the limestone of Egypt, or the bamboo of China. This forced a deep understanding of their immediate world and led to adaptive techniques that could evolve. If a climate became drier, they expanded reservoir capacity. If sedimentation increased, they improved their filtration systems. Their intelligence was not a fixed set of rules, but a living, responsive process. This critical thinking reveals a depth of knowledge we are only beginning to appreciate. It was an intelligence woven into the very fabric of their cities, a testament to what human minds can achieve when they work in concert with their environment. But none of these grand visions would have been possible without the physical means to build them. The enduring strength of ancient drains lies in the very stuff they were made of. Artisans shaped terracotta pipes with a precision that rivals modern machinery, firing clay into segments that fit together with astonishing tightness. In the Indus Valley, they used uniformly sized, kiln-fired bricks that were strong, resistant to water, and could be easily replicated and replaced, creating a truly modular and maintainable system. Over in Rome, engineers turned to lead, crafting pipes that could withstand immense pressure, though they had an inkling of its potential toxicity, often lining aqueducts with fresher water to mitigate the risk. The materials scientist Maud Barlow points out that this was not a random selection. Their choice of resources reflected a deep, intuitive understanding of local geology and long-term sustainability. They used what the earth provided, and they learned to use it brilliantly. The methods of assembly were just as clever as the materials themselves. Roman engineers mixed a revolutionary type of lime mortar that could actually set underwater, creating a powerful, waterproof seal for their massive aqueducts and sewer tunnels. In other cultures, builders stacked heavy stones without any mortar at all, relying on precise cutting and gravity. This dry stone construction was not a sign of primitiveness, but of genius, as it allowed the structures to flex and shift during earthquakes without shattering, and made repairs a simple matter of restacking. The tools that made this possible were remarkably simple yet effective. Bronze chisels, wooden mallets, and carefully calibrated measuring rods enabled workers to carve channels and set pipes with the exact gradients needed for water to flow relentlessly downhill. They achieved alignment so true that they remain functional millennia later. A stunning case study of this material mastery comes from the rock-carved city of Petra. The Nabateans, facing a desert climate prone to sudden, violent flash floods, did not fight the landscape, they became one with it. They skillfully carved drainage channels and diversion dams directly into the rose-red sandstone cliffs themselves. These channels guided torrents of water safely through the city's heart and into massive cisterns, preventing catastrophic erosion while capturing every precious drop. What principles of material science did these ancients grasp intuitively? They understood that durability comes from working with a material's inherent properties, not against them. They knew that a system is only as strong as its easiest part to repair. This resourcefulness offers us a profound blueprint for resilience, a lesson written not in scrolls but in stone and clay. But such ambitious projects demanded more than just skilled hands. They required the coordinated effort of an entire society. The scale of these ancient projects is almost impossible to fathom without considering the human tide that built them. Thousands of hands coordinated with a singular purpose, moved mountains of earth and laid miles of pipe. This was the ultimate expression of social cohesion, a shared goal made manifest in brick and stone. From the vast labor crews of Mesopotamia to the organized guilds of the Roman world, these drainage systems required a complex social machinery that often defined the civilization itself. Anthropologist James C. Scott observes that such monumental infrastructure did more than just manage water. It reinforced social hierarchies, creating a public good that also cemented the power of the state. The organization was meticulous. At the top were the planners and engineers, the visionaries who understood hydrology and geometry. Below them were the skilled artisans, the brickmakers and pipe fitters who turned designs into reality. And forming the foundation of this entire effort were the immense labor crews, which in places like Rome included slaves and conscripted soldiers, and in other societies were drawn from the community itself through a system of shared civic duty. This work was not anonymous, it was documented and often rewarded. Cuneiform tablets from Mesopotamia record rations of barley and oil for workers dredging canals. In Egypt, the artisans of Deir el-Medina received steady wages and well-stocked tombs for their service. This was a formal, recognized profession essential to the city's survival. The impact of this coordinated effort rippled directly into the home. In a city with effective drainage, the daily labor of women was dramatically transformed. The back-breaking task of fetching water from a distant, possibly contaminated source was reduced when clean water flowed through public fountains. The constant battle against mud and wastewater seeping into the home was lessened, freeing up hours each day for other pursuits, from craftwork to childcare. This was an unseen liberation, a quiet revolution in quality of life enabled by public works. We see this societal engine operating on a breathtaking scale at Angkor Wat. The kings of the Khmer Empire mobilized a vast population to construct the world's most extensive pre-industrial water network, a complex of canals, reservoirs, and moats. This was not just an act of hydrological engineering, it was a powerful political tool. The projects provided employment and sustenance for thousands, while the resulting agricultural surplus and stunning beauty of the water-filled cityscape enhanced the king's prestige, framing him as a divine provider. How did these collaborative efforts shape community identity? They forged a shared sense of purpose, a collective pride in what their society could achieve together. The individual found meaning within the collective, and the collective thrived because of the individual's contribution. This was a profound social intelligence, the understanding that a city's greatest strength flows not just through its pipes, but through the bonds of its people. And this intricate web of human cooperation had one ultimate, life-saving purpose: to ensure the health and longevity of the community itself. A silent revolution in public health was flowing right beneath their streets. Long before anyone understood bacteria or viruses, ancient societies were defeating deadly epidemics through sheer engineering. The medical historian Roy Porter noted that these early drainage systems dramatically reduced outbreaks of cholera and typhoid, simply by removing the conditions where these diseases thrived. The logic was elegant and direct. If waste and stormwater do not pool in the streets, the pathogens that depend on stagnant water cannot find a foothold. This was preventative medicine on a city-wide scale. The most immediate benefit was the control of insect populations. By ensuring water could not accumulate and stand for long periods, these networks eliminated the breeding grounds for mosquitoes, which carry malaria and other fevers. Some cultures took this a step further, incorporating natural disinfectants directly into their systems. There is evidence that in parts of the Indus Valley and ancient China, herbs with antimicrobial properties were sometimes placed within drains to purify the water as it passed through, a primitive but effective form of chemical treatment. This profound understanding of cause and effect allowed urban centers to achieve densities that were previously impossible. Rome, with its million-plus inhabitants, could never have existed without the Cloaca Maxima and its ancillary sewers. The system did not just remove waste, it actively protected the population, creating a baseline of sanitation that supported a vast, complex society. The stark contrast to this ancient wisdom is painfully clear in medieval Europe. There, the Roman infrastructure had crumbled, and the knowledge of its purpose was largely forgotten. Cities became choked with filth, waste was simply thrown into the streets, and stagnant water was a constant feature of urban life. The result was a predictable cycle of devastating plagues, like the Black Death, which swept through populations with no defenses against the filth-borne illnesses. This grim comparison forces a difficult question. Why do some societies choose to invest in the health of their people while others neglect this fundamental duty? The answer often lies in a collective foresight, a shared recognition that the strength of a civilization is measured by the well-being of its most vulnerable members. It reflects a mindset that looks beyond immediate profit to the long-term vitality of the community. This commitment to public health was not just a social achievement, it was an ecological one, born from a deep and adaptive understanding of the local environment. Ancient engineers did not see a river as an enemy to be conquered, but as a teacher to be observed. They understood that true sustainability meant designing systems that mimicked natural cycles, a principle that lies at the heart of modern ecology. These forgotten networks were not isolated from their environments. They were deeply integrated, enhancing the very landscapes they inhabited. Environmental historian John McNeill points out that a well-designed canal system in Mesopotamia did more than irrigate crops. It created new wetlands along its banks. These wetlands became rich habitats for fish and waterfowl, boosting local biodiversity and providing additional food sources for the community. The system was not just extracting from the land, it was actively enriching it. This is a form of ecological intelligence we are only now relearning. Their techniques were masterclasses in working with natural forces. Instead of fighting gravity with pumps, they used the land's own contours, designing channels with gentle, precise slopes that guided water effortlessly. They understood the purifying power of plants, using vegetation along canal banks to naturally filter silt and pollutants from the water before it reached their reservoirs. We see this principle perfected in the ancient Chinese paddy fields, where the runoff from villages was channeled through these flooded fields. The rice plants and the soil itself acted as a massive, living filtration system, cleaning the water while simultaneously fertilizing the crops. This was a closed-loop system where nothing was wasted. Perhaps the most elegant example of this sustainable wisdom is the Canal system of ancient Persia. In the heart of the desert, engineers located a water source at the base of a mountain and then, with astonishing precision, dug a gently sloping underground tunnel from the distant village back toward that source. They punctuated this tunnel with a series of vertical shafts which provided air, access for maintenance, and marked the tunnel's path on the surface. The Canal did not require any external power. It used gravity to deliver a steady, reliable flow of groundwater to the surface without pumps or engines. But the true genius was in its sustainability, because it tapped the water table through slow seepage rather than direct extraction. It did not deplete the aquifer. It was a self-regulating system, its flow increasing after rains and decreasing during droughts, perfectly balanced with the natural recharge of the earth. These systems were not built for a decade, but for millennia, serving communities for centuries without exhausting the resource. How can we apply this ancient principle of working with nature instead of against it in our own concrete jungles? Our modern approach often focuses on speed and brute force, moving water away as quickly as possible. But what if we saw a storm not as waste to be disposed of, but as a resource to be harvested and cleansed by the landscape itself? This harmony with the earth points to a profound cultural mindset, one where the flow of water was intertwined with the flow of the sacred. A stone gargoyle on a medieval cathedral is more than a frightening sculpture. It is a sacred spout, a spiritual guardian tasked with the practical duty of spewing rainwater away from holy walls. This fusion of the divine and the functional was a universal principle in the ancient world. In cultures from India to Mesoamerica, the management of water was never a purely secular affair. It was a ritual act, a dialogue with the gods. The mythologist Joseph Campbell often explored how, across many creation stories, the act of controlling water symbolized humanity's imposition of order onto the primordial chaos. To build a drain was to participate in this cosmic struggle, to create a pocket of sacred, habitable space. This spiritual imperative directly shaped the technology itself. The priests who dictated the alignment of a temple were often the same minds that designed its drainage, reading the will of the gods in the stars and the flow of rivers. In ancient Maya society, the natural sinkholes known as cenotes were not just sources of water, they were portals to the underworld. Ritual offerings were made in these deep, clear pools, and the intricate drainage channels of nearby cities were often designed to funnel sacred rainwater toward these revered sites, blending urban engineering with spiritual devotion. We see this seamless integration perfectly along the Ghats of Varanasi. These massive stone staircases leading down to the Ganges are not merely functional structures for managing the river's fluctuating levels. They are the very stage of life and death. Every step is designed for ritual bathing, for ceremonial cremations, for the flow of pilgrims and the flow of water, all united in a single, profound purpose. The practical need to prevent erosion and manage the current is inseparable from the spiritual need to access the holy river. How did this spiritual drive fuel their technological innovation? It provided a powerful, unifying motivation that transcended individual lifetimes. Building a perfect drainage system was not just about public health, it was an act of piety, a way to honor the gods of the river and the rain. This sacred context encouraged long-term thinking and meticulous craftsmanship, as every brick laid and every channel carved was an offering to a higher order. The intelligence behind these systems was not coldly analytical. It was deeply felt, enriched by a belief that the physical and spiritual worlds were one and the same. But such a profound understanding of the world is fragile, and the pipelines of knowledge can break far more easily than those made of stone. A single broken link can sever a chain of knowledge that once held a civilization together. The master engineers of ancient drainage systems depended not on books but on people. In Mesopotamia, the intricate art of canal maintenance was passed from one generation of laborers to the next through a strict apprenticeship model. A young worker would spend years alongside his mentor, learning to read the subtle signs of silt buildup, the precise angle for a sluice gate, and the ritual calendar for dredging. This was living knowledge carried in the hands and minds of the craftsmen. But as historian David Christian notes, this kind of wisdom is incredibly fragile. When a society is shattered by invasion, or when its economy crumbles, the first thing to vanish is the specialized class of artisans who hold these irreplaceable skills. Their knowledge was not stored in a cloud, it was stored in practice, and when the practice stopped, the intelligence simply evaporated. We see this tragic loss in the silent ruins of the Indus Valley cities. Their sophisticated, standardized brickwork and meticulously planned drains represent a pinnacle of urban design. Yet, when the climate shifted and the great rivers that sustained them changed their courses, the social order that maintained this infrastructure collapsed. The people migrated, and the precise techniques for building and maintaining those perfect gradients were forgotten, buried under dust for millennia. The knowledge did not just fade, it was erased. Some civilizations attempted to encode their wisdom. The Great Library of Alexandria held scrolls detailing Greek and Egyptian hydraulic principles, but those texts turned to ash. Even when writing survived, it was often inadequate. You cannot learn the feel of properly mixed Roman concrete from a description, or the instinct for spotting a weak point in a levee from a diagram. This is why some techniques survived only in isolated communities, passed down through families in mountain villages or desert oases, where the continuity of life remained unbroken by empire or upheaval. A shift in cultural priorities could be just as destructive as any invasion. When a new ruling class arrives, obsessed with conquest or monument building, the unglamorous, essential work of cleaning drains can be deemed unimportant. The taxes and labor that once funded maintenance are diverted to other projects. The system decays slowly at first, a single blocked channel, then another. Then a major flood strikes, and without the institutional memory to perform the complex repairs, the damage becomes permanent. The city is abandoned to the mud, and with it, the intelligence that made it livable is lost. What safeguards can we possibly create today to prevent our own critical knowledge from suffering the same fate? Our digital archives are vulnerable to corruption, our specialized industries reliant on a fragile global network. The ancient world cycle of gain and loss offers a sobering lesson that intelligence is not a possession, but a continuous act of preservation and renewal. This stark contrast between their enduring systems and our own temporary solutions forces a direct comparison. A Roman aqueduct still stands after 2,000 years, while a modern concrete culvert might crumble in a century. This is not just a difference in materials, it is a fundamental gap in philosophy. Ancient systems were built as ecosystems, modern ones are often built as machines. The urban thinker Jane Jacobs argued that the old way prioritized resilience, creating networks that could adapt and recover from shocks. Our contemporary approach, for all its power, often builds in rigidity and startling inefficiency. The contrasts are everywhere you look. Ancient engineers used stone, terracotta, and bronze, materials that age with dignity and can be repaired with local skills. We use plastics and thin-walled concrete, materials that degrade unpredictably and fail catastrophically. The scale of management has also inverted, where the Minoans had a modular network of pipes that could be fixed block by block. We rely on vast, centralized systems. A single failure at a main pumping station can paralyze an entire city because we have eliminated the redundancy that made ancient cities so durable. The environmental cost of this modern rigidity is immense. When a heavy rain falls on a city of asphalt, our drains rush a toxic cocktail of motor oil, heavy metals, and road grime directly into rivers and oceans. This is pollution by design. Ancient systems like the Chinese rice paddies that filtered village runoff worked with the landscape to cleanse water, not just evacuate it. A powerful case for looking backward to move forward is unfolding in Amsterdam. Facing increasingly severe rains, the city is not just replacing pipes, it is reviving the old wisdom of its canals. They are turning paved squares into green reservoirs, creating spaces that can absorb water like a sponge during a storm and become public parks in dry weather. This is a direct application of ancient, decentralized principles to a modern crisis. It forces a difficult question with all our satellites and supercomputers. Have we truly advanced, or have we simply traded long-term wisdom for short-term convenience? This evaluation is not about nostalgia, it is about survival, and it demands we reconsider who we include in the story of progress. For too long, the history of these world-changing systems has been a narrative of kings and head engineers, but the true lifeblood of this intelligence flowed through the hands of countless forgotten people. The grand designs of engineers and kings rested upon a foundation of quiet, daily labor. While history celebrates the master planners, the true guardians of these systems were the women, the indigenous elders, and the enslaved workers whose contributions were rarely carved in stone. Feminist historian Gerda Lerner observed that the world of domestic water management was overwhelmingly women's work. The daily tasks of fetching, storing, and cleaning water, of maintaining the small drains that fed into the larger public networks, fell to them. This intimate, hands-on relationship with water led to countless unrecorded innovations, from discovering which herbs possessed natural antibacterial properties to keep water fresher, to developing the most effective ways to seal home cisterns. Their knowledge was born from necessity and refined through generations of observation. In the likely matriarchal society of Minoan Crete, frescoes depict women in positions of authority, centrally involved in ritual and commerce. It is not a great leap to suggest they held significant influence over the design of the palace itself, including the advanced plumbing that brought water directly into living quarters, prioritizing hygiene and domestic comfort in a way that reflected their daily experience. Across the ocean, Native American tribes perfected the use of woven baskets for water filtration, lining them with specific grasses and sands to strain out sediment and impurities, a technology born from deep, place-based understanding. This kind of practical intelligence was not stored in libraries but in oral traditions, passed down through stories, songs, and direct apprenticeship from mother to daughter, from elder to youth. It was knowledge deeply woven into the fabric of culture, which is precisely why it was so resilient. The magnificent Balinese Subak system offers a powerful living example. For over 1,000 years, this intricate network of canals and weirs has been managed by democratic cooperatives where women have always played a crucial role. They help decide planting schedules and water allocation, balancing the needs of irrigation with the demands of drainage in a sustainable dance that honors the island's spiritual ecology. How does acknowledging these countless, overlooked contributors fundamentally change our view of intelligence? It expands it beyond the lone genius to encompass the collective wisdom of a community. It reveals that the most enduring systems were not just feats of engineering, but testaments to shared, practical knowledge, where every member of society had a vital part to play. This inclusive genius had a direct and measurable impact on the most powerful driver of any civilization, its economy. A city's wealth flows as surely through its drains as through its harbors. In ancient Carthage, a bustling port of unmatched commercial power, the ability to efficiently channel stormwater away from warehouses and market squares was not a mere convenience, it was a direct economic advantage. Dry goods did not spoil in flooded storerooms, and trade routes remained open even after violent Mediterranean storms. This created a stable environment where commerce could flourish, boosting the city's wealth and influence on a global scale. This direct link between clean streets and full treasuries was a universal truth in the ancient world. As economist Jeffrey Sachs has noted, effective water management has always been a cornerstone of development, the critical first step that enables surplus production and the growth of dense urban centers. The economic benefits began at the most fundamental level, the farm. Proper drainage transformed waterlogged, saline fields into highly productive agricultural land. By controlling excess water, farmers could grow more reliable and diverse crops, creating the food surplus that freed a portion of the population to become artisans, soldiers, and merchants. This agricultural boom directly fueled specialized industries. In Phoenician cities, renowned for their vibrant purple dyes and fine pottery, drainage systems were essential. These crafts required vast amounts of clean water for rinsing and mixing, and they produced wastewater that needed to be safely disposed of. An efficient public drainage network provided both, supporting local production and creating valuable goods for export. This newfound prosperity was systematically harnessed by the state through taxation. Well-drained, productive land was inherently more valuable, and ancient administrations from Rome to the Indus Valley recognized this. They could levy higher taxes on these stable properties, creating a virtuous cycle. The revenue generated funded further public works, more roads, more aqueducts, and of course, more drainage, which in turn increased land values and tax bases again. We see this strategic investment operating on a grand scale during the Chinese Han Dynasty. The state poured resources into massive canal projects, which not only controlled floods and irrigated fields but also became vital commercial arteries. These waterways carried goods and ideas, stimulating trade and cultural exchange along the Silk Road and fueling an economic golden age. So, what can our modern economies, with their complex financial instruments, learn from these ancient models? They teach a simple, powerful lesson that the most profound economic stimulus can sometimes be a well-maintained gutter. This understanding that infrastructure was beauty, health, and profit all at once led to a final, breathtaking integration where function was not just hidden but celebrated as art. The most elegant solutions never announced their purpose with a shout, but with a whisper of beauty. In ancient Rome, the floors of magnificent public baths were adorned with intricate mosaics, their swirling patterns artfully concealing the very drain inlets that kept the space clean and dry. This was no accident, it was a philosophy, a belief that the most functional elements of a city should also elevate the human spirit. The architect Christopher Alexander called this the quality without a name, a principle where designs serve our practical needs and our deepest emotional yearnings simultaneously. Drainage was not hidden away as an ugly necessity. It was seamlessly woven into the aesthetic fabric of daily life, a direct reflection of a culture's highest values. Consider the serene courtyards of Islamic palaces. Here, a central fountain was not merely a decorative centerpiece. Its gentle, continuous flow served to cool the air through evaporation, creating a natural air conditioning system, while its basin was ingeniously connected to a network of underground channels that carried away excess rainwater. The soothing sound of water masked street noise and contributed to an atmosphere of peaceful contemplation, making the drainage system an essential component of the palace's serene ambience. A perfect example of this is the Alhambra in Granada. Its delicate channels, known as acequias, guide water through serene courtyards and along pathways, their quiet murmur a constant calming presence. The water was not just managed, it was celebrated, its movement choreographed to enhance the beauty and tranquility of every space it touched. This integration extended to the grandest scales of landscape architecture. The Incas sculpted entire mountainsides into vast terraced farms. These breathtaking steppes were far more than agricultural fields. They were a monumental erosion control system. Each terrace acted as a giant stair, slowing the flow of rainwater down the steep slopes, preventing the soil from being washed away and allowing it to be absorbed deeply into the ground. The result was a landscape of stunning visual harmony that also guaranteed the empire's food security for centuries. Even the most dramatic architecture embraced this unity. On the rain-swept heights of Gothic cathedrals, stone gargoyles were not placed for decoration alone. These fantastical creatures were the business end of the building's drainage system, their open mouths serving as spouts that projected rainwater far from the fragile stone walls below. They transformed a practical problem of masonry preservation into a powerful spectacle, a dramatic performance every time it rained, reminding the faithful that even the heavens could be mastered by faith and ingenuity. How does this blending of beauty with practicality fundamentally enhance our quality of life? It creates an environment where functionality brings joy, where the systems that keep us safe and healthy also nourish our sense of wonder. This holistic approach signifies a refined intelligence that understands human beings need more than just efficiency. We need meaning and beauty woven into the very infrastructure of our existence. Yet for all these triumphs of integrated design, history is also littered with the sobering evidence of catastrophic failure, where the wisdom of the drain was tragically forgotten. Even the most brilliant system is vulnerable to neglect. The silent, silted canals of Angkor Wat stand as a ghostly testament to this truth. For centuries, the Khmer Empire's vast water network was its lifeblood, but when maintenance faltered, that same network became its undoing. As collapse historian Jared Diamond has argued, environmental mismanagement is rarely the sole cause of a society's fall, but it is almost always a major accomplice. The story of failure often begins with a slow, creeping decay. The warning signs are subtle at first, a blocked channel here, a slightly longer repair time there. The real danger emerges when a society starts to ignore these signals, when the political will or the economic means to perform constant upkeep evaporates. We see this pattern vividly with the Hohokam culture in the American Southwest. For over 1,000 years, they thrived in the harsh desert of Arizona by building hundreds of miles of sophisticated irrigation canals. But their intricate system was perfectly calibrated for a specific climate pattern. When a prolonged, severe drought struck, the water table dropped and the canals ran dry. Their entire agricultural foundation, and with it their society, crumbled because their engineering, however advanced, could not adapt to a new environmental reality. Sometimes the failure is not a lack of water, but a catastrophic abundance of filth. Medieval London presents a gruesome case study. As the city grew, its open sewers and fetid ditches became overflowing cesspools. The final, unbearable crisis came to be known as the Great Stink of 1858. A hot summer baked the exposed sewage lining the River Thames, releasing a stench so potent it forced the House of Commons to suspend its sessions. their curtains soaked in lime chloride in a desperate attempt to block the odor. This was not a natural disaster, it was a complete social and political failure to invest in public sanitation, and it resulted in rampant cholera outbreaks that killed tens of thousands. Perhaps the most poignant lesson comes from Easter Island. There, the Polynesian settlers initially prospered, but their success contained the seeds of their own destruction. In a fateful decision, they began clearing the island's lush forests for agriculture and to move their famous moai statues. This wholesale deforestation had a cascading effect. It disrupted the entire local water cycle. Without tree roots to absorb rainfall and hold the soil, the land eroded rapidly. Their carefully built drainage systems were rendered useless, overwhelmed by silt and unchecked runoff. The soil became barren, and the society descended into conflict and collapse. What red flags should we watch for in our own sprawling cities today? The parallels are unsettling: rising maintenance backlogs on aging pipes, political debates that delay crucial upgrades, and the increasing frequency of storms that overwhelm systems designed for a different climate. These ancient cautionary tales underscore a simple, brutal equation. A drainage system is a covenant with the future, and when that covenant is broken, the consequences are inescapable. The fate of these civilizations was not sealed by a single cataclysm, but by a long, slow unraveling of the intelligence that once sustained them, a process deeply shaped by the very climate and geography they sought to master. The landscape itself was the chief engineer, and every solution was a response to its demands. In the high Andes, builders constructed channels with loose-fitting stones that could shift and settle during an earthquake without shattering, a flexible design for a volatile land. Meanwhile, in monsoon-drenched Southeast Asia, vast, open drainage canals were carved to handle sudden, massive volumes of rainwater, guiding it swiftly away from urban centers. These were not one-size-fits-all blueprints, but deeply customized adaptations. As geographer Jared Orsi points out, the most enduring systems demonstrated a profound respect for local constraints. They worked within the limits of permafrost in the Arctic and the shifting sands of deserts, rather than fighting against them. This pragmatic intelligence forced brilliant, location-specific innovations. In Mesopotamia, the constant threat of river floods led to the construction of entire cities on massive, artificial mounds called tells. These raised platforms lifted homes and temples above the floodplain, a simple yet effective form of elevation that protected communities for generations. In the arid expanses of Persia and Central Asia, the challenge was not too much water, but preserving every precious drop. The solution was the Kharez or Kanat, an underground canal system. By tunneling deep beneath the desert floor, engineers tapped into groundwater and transported it for miles with minimal loss to the relentless sun and evaporation. The adaptations extended to the very materials they used. In seismically active Japan, historical water systems often incorporated flexible joints made of wood or woven bamboo at critical points in their wooden pipes. This allowed the network to absorb the shocks of tremors, a primitive but effective form of seismic retrofitting that kept the water flowing even as the ground shook. A masterclass in this geographic partnership is the Dutch polder. For centuries, the Netherlands has waged a peaceful war against the sea, using a coordinated system of dikes, windmills, and canals to drain submerged land and claim it for habitation and agriculture. They did not try to defeat the ocean, they negotiated with it, creating a landscape that exists in a carefully managed equilibrium with the water. How can we, facing our own changing climate with its intensifying storms and rising seas, learn to customize our infrastructure with this same level of respect? This context-dependent thinking reveals an intelligence that was not arrogant, but observant and humble, building in concert with the forces of the earth. This legacy of pragmatic adaptation was nearly lost to time, waiting for a new generation to rediscover its vital lessons. A single brushstroke can clear the dust from a terracotta pipe and suddenly bridge 1,000 years. For modern archaeologists, these are not just excavations, they are moments of profound connection, where the lost intelligence of ancient engineers is suddenly revealed. Scientists like Sarah Parcak, who uses satellite imagery to pinpoint buried ruins, emphasize that these findings consistently shatter our assumptions. We thought we understood the pace of technological progress, but then we uncover a 3,500-year-old Minoan palace with a flushing toilet, or a Mayan city like Caracol, where laser LiDAR mapping from the air has exposed a vast, intricate network of reservoirs and canals that sustained a massive population in a dense jungle. Each discovery forces us to rewrite the story of human ingenuity. The tools of this rediscovery are as advanced as the systems they uncover. Ground-penetrating radar sends pulses into the earth, painting a picture of hidden channels and cisterns without ever breaking the ground. LiDAR strips away the forest canopy from above to reveal the ghostly imprint of ancient waterways etched into the landscape. But the real breakthroughs happen when different disciplines collide. Engineers and hydrologists now work alongside historians, applying modern fluid dynamics to understand the precise slope of a Roman aqueduct. They run computer simulations on Inca terrace designs, only to find that their erosion control was nearly perfect. This collaboration transforms piles of stone and clay into a living blueprint. The excavation of Rome's Cloaca Maxima offered more than just an engineering lesson, it provided a social one. Archaeologists found markings on the bricks and administrative records that detailed the centuries of maintenance, the specific work crews assigned to different sections, and the taxes levied to pay for it all. This was not a static monument, it was a living, managed system, and its records revealed the complex bureaucracy required to keep a city of 1 million people healthy. Even more revealing is the evidence from the Indus Valley, where the universal access to drainage is helping archaeologists reconstruct a society with remarkably flat social hierarchies. The fact that every single home, from the smallest dwelling to the largest structure, connected to the same sophisticated system, suggests a powerful cultural emphasis on collective well-being over individual status. It makes you look down at the pavement beneath your own feet and wonder, what other chapters of this forgotten intelligence are still buried, waiting for the right tool, the right question to bring them back to light? This ongoing exploration does more than satisfy our curiosity. It keeps a vital conversation with the past alive, offering tangible solutions for our own future. The principles we are unearthing are now finding new life in the most unexpected places. The wisdom of ancient gutters is flowing back into our cities. From Copenhagen to Singapore, urban planners are rediscovering that the most advanced solutions are often the oldest ones. The modern sustainable architecture movement, championed by thinkers like William McDonough, openly embraces a cradle-to-cradle philosophy, a direct echo of the ancient closed-loop systems we once abandoned. The core idea is simple and profound. Waste is not waste, it is merely a resource in the wrong place. This principle is now reshaping cityscapes. In Copenhagen, a city frequently challenged by heavy rains, engineers have moved away from simply enlarging concrete pipes. Instead, they are creating beautiful green reservoirs in public parks. These are not just for recreation, they are sponges. During a storm, these sunken gardens fill with water, preventing street flooding, and then slowly release that moisture back into the local aquifer or to nourish plants. This mimics the natural absorption of a forest floor, a principle the Minoans and Mesopotamians understood intimately. The economic argument for this revival is overwhelming. These low-tech, nature-based solutions consistently cost less to build and maintain than massive, energy-intensive concrete tunnels. More importantly, they are inherently more resilient. A green park can survive a power outage, a pumping station cannot. In the arid landscapes of Iran, communities are returning to the 3,000-year-old Canal system. These underground channels, which fell into disrepair with the advent of electric pumps, are being meticulously cleaned and restored. They provide a sustainable, gravity-fed water supply that does not deplete the aquifer, offering a powerful answer to modern water scarcity that requires no fossil fuels. A stunning case of this practical integration is Singapore's Ani Water Initiative. Faced with limited freshwater sources, the nation developed an advanced system to purify every drop of recycled drainage and wastewater. The treated water is so clean it is safe for drinking, a high-tech marvel that nonetheless honors the ancient spirit of filtration and reuse seen in the stepwells of India or the cisterns of Tikal. They have closed the loop just as the Romans did with their aqueducts and sewers. How can we scale these ancient solutions for a world of sprawling megacities? The answer lies not in abandoning technology, but in redirecting it, using our computational power to optimize the gentle slope of a channel or to map the perfect placement for a green roof, all in service of principles that are millennia old. This practical integration is the highest form of honoring our shared past, turning forgotten intelligence into a living blueprint for our future. That timeline from Mohenjo-Daro to the modern metropolis tells a single, continuous story. It is the story of humanity's most fundamental relationship with the element that gives and takes life, water. These drainage systems are far more than historical curiosities. They are a direct measure of human intelligence in action. They reveal how societies solve complex problems, balancing brilliant innovation with long-term sustainability and deep collaboration. The philosopher Yuval Noah Harari argues that it was this very capacity to build large-scale infrastructure that enabled our leap from small, scattered groups into vast, interconnected civilizations. The intelligence we see etched into these ancient canals and pipes is not merely about technical skill. It is a richer, more profound form of wisdom, one characterized by a truly long-term perspective. These builders planted trees whose shade they knew they would never sit under. They invested in projects that would only benefit their grandchildren's grandchildren, a stark contrast to our own often short-term cycles. This ancient intelligence was also deeply adaptive. It was not a rigid set of rules imposed on the landscape, but a flexible, observant dialogue with a specific place, its climate, its materials, and its unique challenges. And perhaps most importantly, it was integrative. These engineers saw no separation between the functional and the beautiful, between public health and spiritual duty, between the drain and the community it served. They built systems that solved for multiple human needs at once, from agriculture to art, from hygiene to holiness. This holistic approach often carried a powerful ethical dimension. In cultures like the Indus Valley, the universal access to drainage was not an accident. It was a reflection of a societal value, a form of prehistoric social justice that recognized the health of the most vulnerable member was tied to the health of the entire body politic. Today, we face a global water crisis, a challenge of both scarcity and flooding, where our advanced technology often falls short. The solution may not lie in inventing something entirely new, but in remembering something very old. What if we redefined intelligence itself to include this kind of practical, place-based wisdom? What if we valued the foresight of a maintenance schedule as highly as the genius of a new algorithm? This broader view demands humility. It asks us to look at the cracked concrete of our own cities and recognize that progress is not always a straight line forward. Sometimes it is a circle, leading us back to the timeless principles of working with nature, planning for the long term, and building for the collective good. The call to action is clear, and it is written in the brick and stone of every ancient drain we have walked past. We must stop seeing these systems as relics and start treating them as textbooks. We need to actively integrate their proven principles into our 21st century blueprints, creating cities that are not just smart but are truly wise. This entire journey through time reveals a profound truth: that intelligence is not measured by processing speed, but by foresight. From the meticulous brickwork of Mohenjo-Daro to the roaring heart of Rome's Cloaca Maxima, we have uncovered a forgotten legacy of holistic thinking, where engineering was inseparable from ecology, and public works were an expression of a deep ethical code. These ancient builders possessed skills we are now struggling to relearn: the art of planning for centuries, not just for quarterly reports, of building systems that worked with natural cycles instead of against them, and of understanding that a community's true strength flows from its commitment to the common good. The challenges we face today, from overwhelming urban sprawl to the intensifying floods and droughts of a changing climate, are not entirely new. They are simply our version of the same elemental tests these civilizations met with stunning ingenuity. Their solutions offer more than just historical fascination. They provide a tangible blueprint. What if we designed our cities to absorb water like a sponge, as the Minoans did, rather than rushing it away as toxic waste? What if we valued the long-term durability of a system as highly as its initial cost? This exploration reminds us that our most powerful tool is not a newer technology, but an older wisdom, one that prioritizes harmony, resilience, and the well-being of all. The conversation does not end here. I am deeply curious to know which of these ancient systems resonated most with you. Was it the democratic watercourts of Bali, the self-regulating genius of Dujiangyan, or the sheer scale of Angkor Wat? Share your thoughts in the comments below, and if you want to continue unearthing the profound mysteries of our past, subscribe for more journeys into the intelligence we have left behind. Together, let's keep looking back to build a wiser, more sustainable future.